my sewing room. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I constructed this pillbox hat, as well as providing you with instructions on how to make your own. I originally watched a video on Angela Clayton's channel to get instructions on how to make this, and I will leave a link to that below should you choose to check her video out as well. So I purchased this book, Madly Marvelous, and in it are all of the costumes from seasons 1 through 3 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which, I mean, this is just a gorgeous book. I found this book to be great inspiration for helping me to visualize my vintage style wardrobe and really be able to plan it out as far as colors and patterns, construction, and those sort of things. So I'm very excited to get started with my everyday vintage wardrobe, but I thought, why not make something just absolutely wonderful first? I was just drawn to the iconic look from season 1 that we all know as quintessential Mrs. Maisel. And so I'm making the hat, the coat, the dress, and the gloves. So this should be very fun. I've never made a coat before or a hat before, but everything is almost complete and it's coming out pretty good. So stay tuned to the end to see previews of next week's video where I construct the coat and the dress. That video is almost finished and will be uploaded a week from today. I'm excited to show you all, so make sure you meet me back here next week. In an effort to grow my channel and make more content that I love, I am finally moving to a weekly upload schedule. I plan to be consistently posting videos here on Sundays. If you would like to help me grow this channel, then please share this video, like this video, or leave me some sort of question or comment in the box below. That definitely pushes my videos in front of new eyes. So with all of that said, let's get into the make of this 1950s vintage style pillbox hat that even Mrs. Maisel would wear. So I ordered all of my fabrics from Mood. I got as close to the colors of the original outfit as I could, and I will leave links to the fabrics that I chose in the comment box below should you want to purchase some of your own. So we have a rose pink for the coat, which is a boiled wool, something I've never worked with before, and was also used as the lining for this hat. And then I have a burgundy peach skin for the lining of the coat as well as the outer fabric. And the fuchsia shantung is for the construction of the dress. So the first thing we need to do for the hat is construct the pattern. And I did this by folding a piece of paper into quarters. I needed a circle shape for the hat, so I measured from the folded corners 3 inches from one and 3.5 inches from the other. I wish I had have made these measurements a little larger, as I ended up with a hat that I wished was a little bit bigger. In Angela Clayton's tutorial, she used bigger measurements but wished that her hat was smaller, so I went down a little bit and I wish that my hat was bigger, but I think it's because my head's bigger than hers. Once you have the circle formed and cut out, you can then trace it onto the interfacing and cut it out. I then measured around the circle to get the band measurement, which I will also cut out of interfacing. I made my band 3 inches wide, but I think anywhere from 2.5 to 4, depending on your own personal preference, will be just fine. And the length of the band will be 1 inch longer than the circle circumference. We now have the band and the crown cut out of interfacing. Moving on to the 18 gauge wire. You will need to cut 2 pieces of this wire, one long enough to go around the circle and then one long enough to go around the band. On the ends, use pliers to create this sort of flat loop. This will act as sort of an anchor to hold this into place, so make sure it's long enough to where these overlap by at least 1 inch. Use binder clips to hold this all in place, and then you're going to hand sew it down. tight stitches, but I really don't think this was necessary. I just like any chance to practice different hand stitches and techniques, but I do wish I had made these a lot bigger, as this was very hard on my hands pushing the needle through this stiff interfacing. Once this is all stitched in place, we can begin to work on the lining of the hat. Make sure you cut your circle and rectangle pieces big enough to cover these pieces. You want the right side to be visible inside of the hat, so you're going to make sure you have the wrong side touching the wire. Pin it in place and then whip stitch it down. Once this is complete, you're then going to wrap the band around the crown. I sewed this at the place where it overlapped. Next, pin the crown to the band. You should be looking at the interfacing. Now we're going to break out the fleece to give this some shape. We're going to cut several circles of different sizes and then stack them all together to sort of mold the hat, give it some shape, and get rid of these sharp corners that we have. I then placed a strip around the sides and then a larger circle over the whole thing to sort of hold this all into place. And for this part of the project, there's no right or wrong as to how much fleece you should be adding here. I imagine as I make more of these hats, I'll sort of develop my own style in my own way, but I think that's what makes this such a great first project, is that there is such a huge margin for error. I don't think there's much you could do to really mess this up. I think you'll definitely come out with the hat at the end regardless. So I just kind of went with it, and it definitely turned out okay. Here I am smoothing that big final piece all over everything. And make sure as you're pinning this down, you're smoothing it out. Now for the top layer of fabric, our outer layer. The width of this piece should be twice the width of the piece that you cut out of interfacing that we will be using this fabric to cover. And then I measured around the hat to get the length measurement, because I'm sure the size has changed a little bit based on the padding that we've added. So fold this in half lengthwise and then stitch it together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I did this at the machine. This was the only time in this whole process that I used the sewing machine. So then you fold it together, wrong sides touching, and stitch a 1/2 inch from the folded edge and then set it aside. I'm not sure how good those instructions were. I will try and clarify. So after I folded in half and stitched it together, I am right now marking a 1/2 inch away from that folded edge, because I will seam along that entire line as well. So then I cut the circle big enough to cover the crown and smoothed it out as I pinned it in place. So this is how you really want it to look when you have the fabric pinned over the crown. You want your pins sticking up like this, so when you slide the band down over this, you can see all of your pins and be able to remove them. And so the way I was pinning it originally was not correct, but it was definitely helping to hold everything in place while I sort of figured that out. And so as you can see now, the pins are showing, so I will be able to remove them once everything is situated. And once again, hand stitch this all in place. The worst part of this was how my thread was constantly getting tangled on the pins. Couple that with the fact that it was so hard on the fingers getting the needle through this interfacing for so long. But literally, I got this done in a one-day project, so it wasn't that bad at all. And it was a lot of fun, actually, very relaxing. And so for the inside, I rolled, hemmed, and then stitched it all down. Using binder clips to hold all of this in place is such a good idea. I would probably be using these clips a lot more in my sewing. They are really just a clever trick. So I'm not sure exactly how I feel about the stitches in the inside, but as this was my first time making one of these, I'm not mad at it. I'm sure I'll be making a lot more, so I'll get a lot of practice. And I am going to add a comb in the inside to secure it to my head. I just have to wait for it to come. So I hope you all liked this video. If you liked the video, like the video. And make sure to meet me back here next week so you can see the construction of the dress and the coat and all of the final pictures. And I will see you in my next video that is soon and sure to come. So here is the pattern for next week's video that I'm using to make the coat and the dress. I love this vintage butterick pattern. It is not exactly like the one she is wearing, but I think it's good enough, and I love to do sort of more of an inspired by than just an exact replica. So I think this is going to definitely get the point across and still being very authentic to me. So I think this is going to be fun. I hope you guys enjoy the next video in this series, and I'll see you back here next week.